The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric.
It's Friday, February 2nd, Saturday, February 3rd, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host in the captain's chair, Dave Scott, live from the Great White North in the Caribou region on top of the snowy mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong. Nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, The Fringe FM, Spreaker, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. You can also follow us on Periscope.tv, where we are live right now. Hi, everyone on Periscope. Thanks for tuning on in. We are on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We would appreciate that. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. We also have a GoFundMe account going on right now. GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. That's GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night as we prep to build a brand new studio right here at SOR HQ. If you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, you can go to the Spaced Out Radio store, pick yourself up a nice t-shirt like the one I'm wearing right now. You can see it live on Periscope. You can also read up on the encounter online, dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. You got my latest blog there as well. And we got great videos from Tim Doyle's UFO Seekers, Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight on the show, we welcome back a talented and familiar voice, as it's the first Friday of the month, which means it's time to get all wigged out and talk some aliens with our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection. Keith is a lifelong ET contactee from the Okanagan region of British Columbia. He has a past that is right out of a sci-fi book, revolving around his own alien abductions and contact experiences. So tonight, with Keith, we're going to break down your contact experiences. Yes, if you've had something weird, strange, that seems a little bit extraterrestrial, and maybe you don't know, for the first time with Keith, we are going to open up the phone lines. 702-302-4556 is the number. 702-302-4556. If you want to tell us about one of your strange experiences. Keith is always a good friend to us and this show. He's always telling people all about it, and we love it when he comes on in here. Mr. R. Keith Andrews, good to have you back on Spaced Out Radio again. How you doing?
Not bad at all. Pleasure to be back.
Absolutely, it is. It's always good to have you here, my friend, because, it's always a fun time when you are around and to talk about your experiences and the experiences of others. You've been doing this for about 2.5 years with me now, and we've hit pretty much every topic in the sand when it comes to ETs, ET contact, abduction, experiences, UFO shapes and sizes, absolutely everything. And what I can say is, here is something tonight that we're going to do that we've never done. And that's open up the phone lines. You ready for it?
I am. I don't have a problem with it.
Me either.
Could be entertaining in a lot of ways.
Well, we're soon going to see, because, this would be for a lot of people who have asked you questions over the years to actually get an opportunity to say hello to you and actually get your opinion straight from their mouths, rather than just going through, putting questions in the chat rooms. So I'm looking forward to it. Once again, the phone number, because nobody ever wants to be first. They'll be second, third, or fourth caller, if not more. But nobody ever wants to be first. So somebody's got to break the ice. 1-702-302-4556 is the phone number once again. 702-302-4556. And once again, we're opening up the phone lines tonight. I know God of Thunder on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio is extremely excited for this. So let's get into it. While we're waiting for a phone call, Keith, one of the topics that I wanted to talk to you about, because, we talked about it last month, and this month it's a little bit, more into the whole disclosure movement. And we're not going to get heavy into that tonight. But I'm curious, being a lifelong ET guy and UFO guy, what's your opinion on the whole idea of segregating UFOs from extraterrestrials? And the reason why I ask that is this whole movement seems to be going in on that, okay? That they are saying, well, a UFO is, we don't know if it's alien. It could be American, even though the American government is looking for UFOs, but they don't know what all the black budget stuff is. It could be Russian, it could be Chinese, it could be Japanese or Indian or any other technically advanced nation out there. What do you think about that?
Well, first and foremost, let's be clear. Separating aliens from UFOs is kind of like separating the military from guns. granted, not every UFO is going to be occupied by a military, by an off-worlder. But they do run right down the same channel. And if you're going to separate them, you're going to run into a problem.
So why in your mind do you see that being a problem?
Well, if you're just going to look at UFOs and not look at the occupants, you're going to miss 3/4 of the reason for the UFOs in the first place. Because you can't understand, or at least it's excessively difficult to understand, the movement, the rationality, the whole genre of UFOs if you don't take into consideration the fact that they are moving outside of human ken, outside of human understanding. Well, if the humans don't understand them and they're still moving, then somebody else has got to be running them. You know, that would be my first argument around it. Because if you look at the if you look at the whole UFO thing, granted, I absolutely agree that not every UFO is operated by an alien. And for that matter, not every alien operates a UFO.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't exactly separate them. At least not effectively, unless you're going to ignore an awful pile of data, which makes research extremely difficult and very, very biased.
Mm-hmm. I guess what they're saying is, look, we already have drones out there that are the size of airplanes, that are not, or that are pilotless. And I can see where people are coming up with that idea, see where people are coming up with the idea that, unless you see the occupants inside, how do you really know if it's ufological or not? I get that argument. I really do. I just don't really understand, the whole concept of trying to separate the two, except for the fact that UFOs aren't scary, Keith, but aliens are to human people.
And that much I would absolutely agree with. The fear factor on it is absolutely a driving force. And with that in mind, you're certainly going to have complications with understanding that side of it. But, when you look at it from a scientific standpoint, from a research standpoint, if you're letting fear dictate what you're going to research, especially in the UFO department, you're going to have some pretty serious gaps in your information.
But we can't also just assume that everything is an alien craft either.
Absolutely correct. And this is why, I've always held, you take a look at all the logical information first. Eliminate whatever you can. Okay, and then work with what's left. So, granted, you cannot say unequivocally that's operated by an alien. However, it's safe to bet that it's not operated by a human when it's traveling around the local solar system. Especially if you're going to go with the concept that many people hold, that humans haven't been back to the moon in something like 30 years now.
That we know of.
Well, that's a whole different show.
No, you're correct. You know what? We're going to continue on here, but we do have a caller waiting. Area code 314. Who am I speaking with tonight?
King Dave Gnome. What's up, buddy?
Adnome, what's going on? I need you to turn your radio down or your speakers down a little bit, okay? Because we're getting some feedback on this end.
Is it still doing it?
No, we're good now. How you doing, man?
All right, awesome. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. Do you have a question for Keith tonight, my friend?
Yeah, the propulsion systems onto UFOs, is it possible that they could be magnetic, like a magnetic propulsion?
In a manner of speaking, the answer would be yes. They actually feed on the best one I've seen actually feeds off the energetic field, if you will, the magnetic field of departing electrons. It feeds off the shockwave that departing electrons actually use. But you're very much on the right track.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
What about light drive? What about light drive on that rather than magnetic propulsion?
Well, there is a photon drive, yes. The biggest problem with the photon drive, though, is that it runs into massive snags as soon as it goes into a shadowed or into a reduced solar impact. When you're putting when you've got too much distance between the sun and the engine, it's great for interplanetary. Okay, not good. The solar drives, that is, are great for interplanetary, but they are not good for interstellar. They're good from a standpoint of you fire them up and you travel in essentially a straight line using gravitational fields to slingshot around what you need to. And that's a telemetry nightmare in itself. But you don't have the same control of the vehicle, so you don't put a photon drive on any sort of a combat vessel.
Mm-hmm. Adam, you got any more questions for Keith while we got you here?
That was the only one I could think of off the top of my head.
Not a problem. Appreciate that, Adnome. It sounds like you're either bowling or at work, one of the two.
I'm at work, yeah.
You're always working, guy. Appreciate your call. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
All right, we are taking calls for our Keith Andrews tonight. 1-702-302-4556 is the phone number. And anything you want about UFOs, extraterrestrials, your experiences, and if you want them explained, feel free to call in. Once again, 1-702-302-4556 is the number to do it. Now, Keith, right before Adam called in, we were talking about the difference between UFOs and alien craft. Is there a way to tell in your mind between the two, or is the technology so close between what we have here and what they have up there, thanks to reverse engineering? Are we able to tell now what's ours and what's theirs? Well,
okay. Can people with the right equipment tell? Yes. Can your general, JQ public tell by just looking at a ship? The odds are extremely unlikely because they are in configuration. When you look at the physical appearance, they look very similar. However, when you start looking at the electromagnetic field around it, or the biological field, depending on what ship you're looking at, the readings are pronouncedly different. That was an interesting word. But, so if you've got the equipment to do the appropriate technological scan, yeah, there's a very big difference between the energy footprint. But from a visibility standpoint, no, not really.
So, unless you're up close and personal with whatever these craft are, you're not going to be able to tell. Even the military, for the most part, isn't going to be able to tell when they intercept a craft like these F-18s did with the Tic Tac video in 2004.
Yeah, it's going to be awful hard. I mean, when you go into the ones in orbit, it's easy to tell because mankind has not figured out the telemetry readings to get vehicles to do what these things do in orbit. You know, like when you're watching a satellite, for instance, traveling a dry line, and then all of a sudden it pulls a 90-degree turn and it's gone. Humans have not got their computer systems up and running to that level yet. But in atmosphere, unless you've got access to the readings, like somebody trained properly with radar will be able to spot the difference between a human drone and a human drone or a human, you know, energy craft as compared to an off-worlder's, because the print is so different in what they're looking at.
Right. I got a question here in the chat room from Daryl. She is asking, Keith, are they sucking energy out of humans using the metals or other energy we have to use for their own appliances?
No. How's that for subtle? It's a great concept. And, you know, from everything I've picked up and everything I've seen, they don't feed off humans, off the biofields of humans. Okay. Number one, the biological field in a human is so toxic right now. They have to go through a staggering amount of purification to get it to do anything properly. That, you know, it's kind of like trying to use, you know, if you will, a wood stove, or not a wood stove, but a steam engine to try and run a Concorde. You know, it's just not functionally feasible.
Catalina is asking then a follow-up question. Do they feed off of nuclear radiation? Because, you know, and I'll add to it, in the 1960s, the late 60s, early 70s, we saw a rash of UFO sightings and happenings where they were shutting down nuclear missile sites across the United States and Russia.
Well, ironically, they don't feed off it, but they can certainly put it to use. And the reason for all of that was because mankind at that point was so close to pushing the button and blowing the planet up that they didn't have any functional option other than to pull the energy out of it. And that was on a direct order from the consortium, because their primary issue is don't blow the planet up. You know, if you want to kill each other, well, you're welcome to it. It's kind of pointless. But nuclear radiation released en masse would drastically alter the information bank, you know, the memory banks on this planet, and that's why they pulled the energy out of it.
All right, let's go over to Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, where Canadian Joe is asking, Keith, what do you think about the entire Tom DeLonge affair?
Well, everything I've looked into in it says it's a great showpiece, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of stability to it. You know, everything I've looked at, it just there's so much contradiction in it that it doesn't seem to hold any water that anybody can functionally work with. And, you know, I know a lot of people that seem to swear by the man, but it just doesn't add up. You know, the whole concept that he's been working with, well, number one, he contradicts himself more often than he actually agrees with himself, which is, it always makes it fun trying to figure out what he's really trying to tell you.
Do you think then, you know, and I'll ask a follow-up question for Joe, do you think then that this is turning into be way too governmental before people's eyes, but the majority of public doesn't really understand that because they've never really been into the UFO scene until now?
Yeah, quite frankly, that makes total sense to my way of thinking. There's something about the whole way it's being done that to me, just reeks of controlled information and a whole pile of confusion coming out of it at the same time. Which is stock in trade if you're trying to keep things under wraps.
Let's get to aliens for a second, because we've delved a lot into the whole DeLonge thing this week, and I'm really wanting to kind of take a night off from that. I hope you guys don't mind, but if your questions do come up, I will ask Keith, and I will try to help out as much as possible there. When it comes to aliens visiting, I know I've had them around. Other people have had them around. Do they leave signs of their being in your area? Fingerprints, handprints, footprints, I don't know, maybe even scat? I don't know. I'm just throwing the scat out there for the hell of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as I know, they don't go doing that on your front lawn. Usually chalk that up to a dog or a cat. But, are there signs? The answer is yes. They're usually pretty good at hiding them. It's most of the time, the reason that you don't see a lot of physical evidence is because of the fact that, for instance, if they show up quite literally by teleportation, matter relocation, you don't get a whole lot of footprints on the way into an area. Okay. And of course, especially if we're looking at the grays, they just don't weigh enough to leave much in the way of a footprint. Okay, but there's got to be people that have come up with evidence, as in bits and pieces of either a fingerprint or depending on the race, or a footprint or something in the way of broken blades of grass. And of course, to spot things like that, you got to have somebody that's a professional tracker to spot them. But as far as, most of that information, it almost feels like somebody's gone to a lot of trouble to submerge it. To bury it just to hold a thought process in place.
Okay, let's move on. Back to Canadian Joe on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. He was asking, do you believe extraterrestrials fuel their ships by using our sun? There have been some very intriguing videos of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, why is that then?
Well, because the plasma and the hydrogen that comes off the sun is what they're using. So they're using a essentially they're using a plasma scoop to charge the engines, if you will, kind of like an oversized gas tank. And contrary to popular belief, you don't have to get right into the sun to do it. I mean, they fire the sunspots and what have you. That energy is what they use in many of the ships. Simply because they use a conversion process and the way they go. By the way...
How do they not burn up, though, Keith? I don't know if you can answer that or not. I mean, the answer will be quite subjective. But it surprises me with the heat of the sun right near... And you see these ships in these videos, what looks to be ships, pulling into them.
Yep.
How do they not burn up?
Because they've got a much better heat transfer system. Okay. Basically, it boils down to this. And we'll just go into real simple chemistry, I guess it is. Might be physics. But anyway, the hotter something gets, the more active the atoms and the electrons in that matter move. Okay. And quite literally, the process that they're talking about is the oscillodensification of the tritranslumpatial equipolarity. Essentially speaking, they feed off the agitated molecules, and they, instead of letting the heat build up, they transfer it into the energy, into their engines, and that's where part of it goes. The rest gets bounced. But they've got much better heat sinks than what mankind does. Yeah, that's the easiest way to put it.
Let's get to Joe's question, and Joe is asking, do some ETs who have visited Earth feed off of humans?
Yep. The Teklak are an absolutely obvious example. Those are your 4.5 to 5.5 foot reptilians. And quite frankly, they find humans as a delicacy. Many of the carnivorous types will, it's kind of like hunting, if you will. And I know people don't like to hear that, but many of them will, if the situation arises, eat people. But it is certainly not what would be considered proper protocol to eat the people of this planet. But you got to remember, them eating a human is very much like a human eating a cow. Okay, or a human eating a shark. It's just, in their eyes, it's just another life form that happens to be made of meat. Which is why they don't worry about it. That's why they don't look at it as a bad thing. However, before somebody starts jumping on that one, this does not mean anybody is up there, en masse going, oh yeah, just go pick off the humans as often as you want. That's actually rather frowned upon by the consortium.
All right, let's get to Elizabeth's question then, getting back to energy of spaceships. She goes, do you know of any small ships that use solar energy?
Absolutely. There's a few of them. The Greys with the saucers, absolutely, for the in solar system runs, they absolutely use solar energy. They just happen to have better transfer and a bigger battery. But the interplanetary craft in many races is done on solar because of the fact that it's easy to come by when you're near a star. And it's one of the easiest ones to move the energy through. To move the energy throughout the ship. That's the easiest way to put that one.
Well, let's get to experiences here, because tonight I want to make it about experiences. And if you want to call in and tell us about your experience, 1-702-302-4556 is the phone number, 1-702-302-4556. I want to hear your stories. Do you think you've been abducted? Do you think you know? Do you want to know if you have? What are the signs? How do you feel? Let us know about it. Usually we get a bunch of questions coming in for Keith in the chat rooms. Feel free to ask them on the phone lines as well. Let's go to a question from Gail in the SOR Space Travelers from the Veterans Group. Gail says, Keith, if off-worlders can see through walls and move back and forth through walls, why do they need to abduct humans to examine them? Why don't they just look inside them from afar? Do they have vision problems?
Well, that depends on the ET, but the biggest reason would be because of the fact that when you're trying to do a blood sample and you're trying to actually take proper solid readings of it, you need the liquid. You don't do it just by looking at optical inference. Same applies to skin samples, same applies to figuring out what muscle tension or muscle receptivity is. These are things that you've got to have the equipment and you've got to have the tools handy to do the readings. Okay. The other issue, of course, is not all ETs can actually do all of the above. And besides that, much as there is technology that can see inside a human body. Matter of fact, it was on Earth 4,000 years ago. but it doesn't enable you to do much with it at that kind of a distance. So that's why they pick the people up. And again, picking people up is because they're studying the evolution of the race, and they need the information from the residents in the cell structure. But that's why they don't just do a shall we say just a look in.
Follow-up question from Elizabeth. She is asking, who did you work with to learn about all of these ships and the knowledge that you have?
Oh, no, there's a list and a half. Quite frankly, it started off with the Council of 12 the day I was born. I was not happy with the whole setup, and they stopped me from staying dead, if you will. The first people I dealt with en masse would be the Thrazazians. But where I got most of my information in the long run was I went straight to source. I went over everybody's head. And, also understand that when I first started dealing with off-world ships, it wasn't this lifetime. Okay. I have dealt a lot with the way the Greys work, with their ships and what they're up to and why. And that's why I keep telling people, and I'm sure you've heard me say it, Dave, where I've said that people are looking at gravity backwards, and that's what's making the Terran built equipment not work as well as it should. But and of course, Radio Command, which is a small faction out of the consortium, has given me a lot of information, a lot of insight into the way that their communication systems work. This is why I can say without any problem that much as mankind needs line of sight to bounce a radio signal or any communication signal at this stage, which is why we've got all the satellites up in orbit, the off-worlders have figured out how to send a signal straight through the planet. And frankly, Radio Command has done the best job of that, or at least we're the most forthcoming.
Let's go over to Periscope here, where Anunnaki Awake is asking, what percentage of missing persons on Earth do you believe are related to extraterrestrial activities?
Well, clearly that was a subjective issue. And frankly, I'd be inclined to say that you're probably, if you hit 0.5%, you're doing well. Okay. There really aren't, percentage-wise, there really aren't that many people that are taken and aren't returned. It does happen, but it's not as common as people think. More often than not, it's either people doing it, somebody doing it to somebody. Many times people just get up and leave. And there is a neat little, and what I mean by leave is they leave the area and just don't tell anybody where they've gone. The one that throws people for a real loop, though, is there are such things as earthbound wormholes, where somebody can literally disappear from one place on the planet and show up on the other. And usually it's disconcerting enough that the person making the trip is they're either very confused when they get there and potentially really can't remember, or it's so weird they have no idea as to how to sort it out. Once in a while you'll get one that goes, yeah, I don't know how I got here, but this is where I am and here's my information. At which point, the appropriate governments help get them back.
Mm-hmm. Butch Witkowski once did asked a few questions when he was investigating human mutilations on this. And he, being a former police officer, has friends and sources in the FBI. And apparently there is 1.3 million people who go missing in the United States annually.
Uh-oh. Hold that thought. That's my kid showing up.
No problem. You go. Keith, his son is getting home, so he's just going to run and grab his son here from the front door. But getting back to your question, from what I heard from Butch Witkowski, his source is basically asking or saying that 1.3 million Americans go missing annually. The police can account for most of them through murder, through kidnapping. Maybe it's the parents, in a divorce, one parent takes another child or takes the children and runs away, kids running away. There's usually an answer for it. And when our FBI whittles down this number, and this is just the way he kind of, vaguely explained it to me, but when they, it's kind of like a funnel. When they funnel it down and they bring down the number, I think the number that the FBI cannot account for one way or another was a pretty high number, an impressive number of like 65,000. And once again, you're taking away murders, you're taking away people who just want to disappear and, away from their families, kidnappings, all sorts of things, suicides, people jumping off of bridges or off of boats into the ocean without being known. I mean, it is absolutely everything that kind of stirs into that. So that's the number I heard. Now, how accurate that 65,000 is, I have no idea. I really don't have any idea on the FBI number, but that's just what I heard. And if you email Butch Witkowski at uforcop.com, that's uforcop.com, and ask Butch, he would be more than welcome to give you a number on that, because like I said, I do believe it is around 65,000. We got Keith back now, and we're going to go straight to the phone calls once again. Area code 805. You are on the air with us. Who are we speaking with?
Is this the show with the great Dave Scott and the fabulous R. Keith Andrews?
Eric with a K, you are way too kind. Way too kind.
Way too.
Well, I'm here. Okay, I'm here to spread the truth, and I think that Dave is the future star of podcast and terrestrial radio, and I just want to be on the bandwagon. But I'm just trying to be fun. No. Let me say this.
Hold on.
Okay,
1
go
second.
ahead.
The way you were squeezing Jimmy Church's butt on Twitter yesterday, I'm suspect of that answer right now.
Well, okay. I will say this, and the only reason, not the only reason, but the main reason why Jimmy Church gets all these people to call him is because he lives in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, where everybody most of the people in this community kind of gravitate there. So let me put it this way, Dave, if you lived in Hollywood, then Jimmy Church would probably be playing second fiddle to you.
Oh, you better hope Jimmy's not listening, because he takes Friday nights off,
I will. I'll tell him to his face. I don't care. No, seriously though, Richard, the Doty guy, called in out of nowhere last night, and not to promote that show, but the fact is I don't know. Let's talk about Richard Doty. Do you know that he actually said that the Roswell crash was real, and then there was another crash, as everybody knows about, that what happened in Mexico? They didn't find the craft for 2 years later. He said they found dead, burned up aliens in this craft, and then the original crash, they found a live alien. And I'm wondering if Keith Andrews knows anything about this.
Yeah, number one, you're right on both counts as far as I'm aware. they did have, there was actually more people on the Roswell one than what they've told you, but yes, they did actually end up with a live alien out of Roswell. Which, quite frankly, from my understanding, survived for somewhere close to 5 years. They actually had two technically alive. One was in the process of dying, and they managed to keep it around for a little bit. It just didn't survive. It just didn't last very long.
Quick question. There's that one video that everybody's telling me, there's only one video that shows the Skinny Bob video that they claim that is the real video. Do you believe that is the real video on YouTube of a real alien?
Well, I know there is a real video out there. Now, the specific one you're referring to, I can't speak to because I'm not 100% certain which one you're referring to. That said, I do know that there are a couple of videos out that are very real. I'm just surprised they're still up.
Can you put those on the Spaced Out Radio? I swear to God, I would love it. I'll even send you a donation if you want.
You know, not that I turn down money, but my finding anything on YouTube is by accident.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you come across something and you can post it on the Spaced Out Radio hashtag, I'm just saying, I just want to share a story with you, Keith, because I don't know if you know this or not, but I just got on Twitter a couple years ago, and one of my first followers was the Reverend John Polk. Yes, and so we kind of became like Twitter friends in a sense, and then he told me about his book and so on and so forth. And then he came out with that book. I'm sure you know about the blue beings at the UFO conference. And then, and he claims in his interviews that at that conference there where was that exactly? I forgot where that was. It was a couple of years ago.
That was in Portland, Maine.
Yeah, you were there.
Yes, I was.
You saw, from what I understand, can you tell that story? Because I've never heard you tell that story. You saw blue beings at that conference, I was told. Is that true?
That is very correct.
20 other people saw that. I just want the listeners to know that this story is a story that's been reported by multiple people. So this is a true story. I would love to hear it from you, though. I've never heard it from you.
Well, when I got there, I was actually in the conference hall, and I believe it was Travis Walton that was up doing his presentation at the time. And of course, my eyes don't work as well as I'd like, so I don't have, especially then, I didn't have the long distance vision. But there was a lot of hubbub going on, and I'm not going to bother mentioning names because I haven't gotten permission from anybody to do so. So the one person pointed out the gentleman and said, "Hey, look at the color of that guy's skin," right? And I'm looking at it. I couldn't really see, but they pointed out the guy with the white hat. So I looked at him and went, "Okay, that's a little odd." And they asked me, "This is, what do you make of this?" I don't know. I'm going to go find out. Now, understand, I talked to a lot of people that said they were dealing with off-worlders all the time. And so when this one happened, when this was pointed out to me, I headed over to check it out. And the closer I got, the two things that stood out, number one, his skin was extremely blue. Number two,
was it a dark blue or a light blue or a medium blue? I'm trying to picture in my mind, like, what shade of blue was it?
I'll post the picture on Twitter.
Okay,
that'd be appreciated. Thanks, Dave. Basically, it was liquid. It literally was every shade of blue. But you know what those? I don't know if you know if I'm describing it right. You know those funny little stickers that you can get that when you push on them, the color moves?
Yes.
Okay. It had that kind of mobility to it. Like with human pigmentation, it doesn't move. It's just, that's what it is. Their pigmentation, this guy's pigmentation moved. And
now, who touched him? Who touched him? Or did it just happen without anybody touching this guy? Was it just moving? He was standing there, and his pigmentation was altering.
Bingo, got it on the first shot.
Wow.
And I'll tell you,
and that's what I was told by other people, and you're confirming this. So I'm thank you. Keep going, because I just want people to know. I mean, this is not a BS phone call. I've heard this story and I believe it. And now that you're telling it, it's just solidifying. So keep going, please.
When I got close, the chap was actually talking to Reverend John Polk. Only I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could certainly tell that whatever was being said was not being well received by the blue chap. So I as I'm approaching, I looked at the guy and, I interjected and I, politely, and I went, "Excuse me, but are you by any chance Pleiadian?" And the guy looks at me and he goes, "Yes."
Oh my God.
Like,
I've never heard that. I love it. Keep going, brother. I love it.
Well, when somebody's learning a second language, they really work at the diction and at the forming of the mouth. Right, when you're trying to wrap your mouth around a new language. That's what this struck me.
I gotcha. Wow, that's a trip.
And so, of course, I changed gears right away, and I welcomed him to the conference. And like I told him, I says, this is a great place to come because everybody that comes here pretty much is either interested in space travel or aliens and off-world and that sort of thing. And I said, I take it, by the look of it, you've had more than your fair share of time off planet. And,
Did you literally say that?
Yes.
Did you literally say that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's funny. I can't believe it. You had interjected humor towards an alien, in other words.
Yeah, I'll take it that way. I was being dead serious.
Okay. Keep going. I have not heard this story. This is a great story.
So we were. I talked to him for a little bit, and while I'm talking to him, there's another chap. There's another blue chap around that was also in the background. And I'm talking to this guy, and the first thing that struck me about him, of course, once I'd gotten the confirmation, I says, "Oh, by the way, just to let you know, and I'm going to interject something here. I've spoken to a lot of other people about something called a Martokian, another race. Okay, and virtually everybody I talk to asks, what's a Martokian? Right. Well, in this chap's case, I turned around and when I got talking to him, I'm like, "Oh, by the way, just to let you know, about 10 years ago, I ran into a Martokian in town." Well, the chap just about come unglued. It was like a little 2-year-old bouncing up and down, saying, what was he doing here? Why was he here? Where did you find him? This sort of thing. And the questions just kept coming off him. Clearly, he knew what a Martokian was. Right. Quite happy.
Can you describe generally the physical appearance of this person that's telling you that you were having this Martokian conversation with?
Round about the 5 foot, I'm guessing 5'6", 5'7", might be 5'8". He's about the same height that I am. Average build. He certainly looked like an older gentleman. Okay, like older being somewhere in his probably.
Did he have an Asian Fu Manchu to him or anything like that?
Any which?
Did he have any kind of Asian Fu Manchu kind of thing? Did he have a kind of that mystique about him?
No, actually, in all fairness, he looked far more like a standard Westerner.
Okay.
You know, he really, to me, didn't. There wasn't anything abnormal aside from the fact that his skin was blue and his whole movement thing seemed, the way he walked, the way he moved, seemed a little odd. And the thing that really got me was when I shook his hand, you could feel the pigmentation move.
Wow.
Okay, like it wasn't. It's not.
Okay, now here's what the debunkers would try to say. They would try to say, "Well, was it that those people that live in Kentucky that took, whatever?" Because you could go on the internet, you could search, say, the blue people from Kentucky, but you're not talking about those blue people, right?
No, because those people, and that's what the heck is it called? Colloidal silver.
Right.
Colloidal
exactly.
silver changes your skin blue, absolutely. But the pigmentation doesn't move.
Got you. So that's key right there.
Yeah. And for the
now,
other...
I heard at one point there was 4 people that were in the conversation that this is what John Polk shared to me. 4 different people. I mean, one guy, he claimed looked like the older guy, and then there was the son, and then there was a few other people, and they were were you there during that conversation?
Guys, we're gonna have to hold on here. Eric, you can stick around. I'll get Keith to answer the questions for you right after this. We never know where it's going with our Keith Andrews, but we do know that we have the ET Connection going on for the next 2 hours on Spaced Out Radio. Our Keith Andrews will be back with your questions and more phone calls right after this on the Mighty SOR.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Lori and Fenton here, SOR listeners. Join me at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th, where 14 presenters discuss all things disclosure, UFOs, and aliens. Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address disclosure. Preston Dennett will present Inside UFOs. Your Dave Scott and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien contact. Get tickets at caufocon.com.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Laurie and Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey space travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at SpacedOutRadio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience, Cosmic Passport, Heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spaceoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spaceoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we're into the weekend crew. I head off into the wilderness to find my Zen and my Chi, maybe a Sasquatch or two with Bazooka Joe. And we are off and running with Spaced Out Saturdays with Joe Roop starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. And then the beautiful, lovely, and talented Elizabeth Anglin with Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Sundays. Same time, everything can be found at spacedoutradio.com on the weekend. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to Freedom Slips. Actually, make that revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Symbocephalak. Symbocephalak is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we are live on periscope.tv. So you go to periscope.tv/Spaced Out Radio to pick up our channel. We are also on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Oh, Canadian Joe, you're making me laugh here. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yes, our YouTube channel is youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. If you want to hear our archives, we're on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month, rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. You can pick up a t-shirt like the one I am wearing right now if you see it on Periscope. We also have the Encounter Online for all your latest and greatest and weird, strange news as well. You can watch videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Now, right before the break, our Keith Andrews was answering a situation that he was in at a Paracon or a UFO con or an alien con, whatever you want to call it, back in, I believe, 2015, 2016 in Portland, Maine. And Keith had this experience along with 20 others that was brought up by Eric, who is still on the phone with us. And Keith, if you want to keep going with the question about Don the alien.
Well, where Don came in, like when I was talking to him, there were all the other people. Now you had mentioned, Eric, the 4 people. Now there were 4, but it wasn't actually his son. I actually asked Don about it, and it wasn't his son. The younger gentleman was his. Essentially, he was a protege. He was there to learn. Don brought him down to experience an interaction with humans. So this
that totally makes sense.
You know,
I'll just say this: that I don't know if you know this, but John Polk was only speculating that it appeared as though he could be his son, but it makes sense because you're saying he's his protege. I believe that. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, not a problem. The other gentleman, the much taller gentleman that was there, was not actually Pleiadian. He was a Nord. Okay, he was a Nordic. And the woman that was there was their human liaison. That was the one that was helping them understand what money was for, because these guys had no clue about finances. They had no clue about the interactions at all. And I mean, completely lost. So
that's exactly what they told me, that they when they walked in the door. Were you there when they walked in the door and they tried to hand the cash to the lady and John Polk came up? Were you there when that happened?
No, but I do have reports from, I think I've actually got 22 witnesses about that, and consistently they were saying these guys had no clue how money worked.
That's exactly right. I just want to confirm that anybody that's listening, as wild as this story sounds, this happened. So keep on, because this is bizarre.
Now,
please keep on.
Oh, not a problem. We talked for a bit, and of course, the individual I was with, quite literally asked if we could get a photo of him, and his immediate response was yes. You can get a photo. And when it was suggested that we put it on the web. His immediate reaction was, no, do not put it on the web. You can show people in person, but do not broadcast it anywhere yet. So I gave him my word that it would not go to anybody over the net until I heard from him again. Until I got direct go-ahead from him. And I took a lot of flack.
Okay, you know what? Let me jump in real quick here. I'm glad you told me that, because you may or may not know this, but there was some disinfo out there. And now that you're telling me this, I believe you. But there was disinfo out there that you were keeping the picture for, well, selfish reasons, let's just say. But I don't think that's what it was. You were honoring an agreement that you made with this being, basically.
Yes. That was what it really boiled down to. I gave the guy my word, and I took a lot of flack for the fact that I wouldn't release it. Until, and it was a year later when I finally got the information, because I wouldn't even give it to, even John asked for a copy of it, and I told him no.
Yeah. I remember that. They couldn't figure that out, and I'm like, well, I'm just hearing the story. I don't know. I've never talked to Keith Andrews. I don't know. You know what? I'm not going to judge your story, Mr. Polk. And I like John, but I'm not going to make a decision on your story until I hear both sides. And I see you're filling in the gaps, and I can see how I believe everything you're telling me so far. I just want you to know that. So keep going. Please continue.
Now, the thing the whole thing took quite a while, but when he left, because I noticed that the younger chap, the younger Pleiadian, was getting a little agitated, and Don said he had to get going. Right, he had to get the guy back home because he was getting too agitated. And I went, yeah, no problem. I watched Don walk out of the room. Now, you got to understand, we were in a conference room. They had to come out of the conference room into the main lobby where the desk was, where the reservation desk was, and where just standard population comes and goes. The other guests came and went. Don walked out with his protege. You would have had to go through the lobby and then outside. And I'm watching them walk across the lobby, and they didn't get halfway across the lobby, and they faded out. Just like you would expect with a transporter beam, they literally faded out. Now, I thought that was a little strange until I got talking to some of the witnesses, and it turned out that they arrived the same way. They just faded in.
Now, let me throw a few things at you. This is what I was told, and maybe you can verify this, that the front desk was apparently getting phone calls either during or after that were asking the front desk who were those blue people. Did you hear anything about that, where they actually were getting phone calls? Talk about that. I'm curious.
The normal guests of the hotel were asking why there were blue people in the lobby, where they had come from. And, the funny part there was that the lobby the clerks couldn't answer where they came from because they couldn't quite figure it out. Let's face it, they showed up.
Okay, let's go sideways. Why in the hell was this? Hell's not a bad word. Why was this not reported on the news? You would think a story like this would somehow get on some sort of newspaper or television. Why do you think that didn't happen? Because apparently it didn't happen. It just didn't get leaked.
Well, I can't speak for anybody else as to why they didn't leak it. Myself, I didn't bother because, well, I told Don I wouldn't. So I didn't. I never did get around to writing the book that I'm supposed to write on it. I've got all the notes for it. I just never got that far. But my suspicion is, where it comes to the hotel, what hotel is going to say, oh, by the way, we had aliens show up at our show, on our site? People are too afraid of them.
Good point. But here's the deal, though. These blue people apparently didn't look like what most people would imagine that aliens look like. They look pretty much human. Or in what ways did they not look human in their features?
In their features?
Other than the color of their skin, were there any features that were different than humans?
Not really. They really did look essentially human. I mean, the younger one had a slightly more elongated face, but I've seen humans with elongated faces.
Right.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Yeah, exactly. So I really can't give you a definitive on that side of it. But...
Okay, there was one other report that somebody apparently, I don't know who it was, as they left, and whether they, like you, I've never heard what you just said, is that they just basically dematerialized, but somebody claimed, and this, I don't know if this is true, that they went outside and they saw from the roof area a light that kind of go off into space. Did you hear that, or do you know anything about that?
Well, I did hear about it, yes. And the reality is, if you come by ship, you got to leave by ship. At least it would be an idea.
So you didn't see it, but it's plausible.
Yeah, I wasn't actually outside. I was, it was funny because I talked to Don, and the thing that was really kind of fascinating to me was so many people that had told me that they deal with off-worlders all the time. The outstanding report from all of the witnesses was they never even thought to talk to each other at their own tables. Like, people were sharing the same table and didn't discuss these people until the following morning. Right. There was no real functional discussion at all about it.
Okay, so here's what John Polk described it as. He used the term alien anesthesia as a way of describing that somehow he felt like, however it was, that they were kind of put under this like time mind warp thing, that all their thoughts and their brain function just kind of paralyzed, and then they later woke up and realized that this really happened.
Oops! Welcome to live radio. Yeah. In all fairness, that was something that actually he and I did discuss, and I'd actually asked Don about it. I asked him why, when I look at him, sometimes his skin was human colored, and other times it was this bluish color, and he never blinked. He says, "Well, because we're trained as shifters." And I says, "Can you explain?" And he goes, "Yeah, we learn how to manipulate our pigmentation so that it looks normal." He says, "What I can't figure out is how come you're not confused by it." I says, "Well, my eyes don't work the same as everybody else's."
So I mean, it appears to me that you perceive this event in slightly maybe a different way than others did, just due to your natural genetics, possibly. I don't know how to describe it, but okay?
That is, in all fairness, a very good way to describe it. Dave and I have had some interesting conversations to that effect. And it really boils down to, my system does not work. My perceptions don't work the normal fashion, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But that whole event, it was indoors. I think the total was 22 witnesses that I talked to, all with essentially the same story, and all of them came up with the same issue of, we didn't even think to talk to each other about it until I opened my mouth, and people were talking about it a little in the morning, and I mentioned that, I've got a photograph. We managed to get a photo of him.
Okay, now let me ask you this. Travis Walton. Travis Walton obviously was the keynote speaker. And apparently, correct me if I'm wrong, is for some reason he did not want to discuss this event after, and he really won't discuss it now. Have you ever had a discussion with him why that is?
Why he won't discuss why he won't discuss Don?
No, why won't? I mean, he was there present during this whole experience. He knows about what I'm assuming he knows. I mean, was Travis Walton in the area when all this was going down? Did he witness this also?
Oh, everybody in the room witnessed it. And yeah,
did you ever talk to Travis Walton about it though?
Oh yeah, I spoke to Travis about it quite extensively. And
what can you share about that without, broaching any kind of confidence that you have with him? I mean, I would love to know, because everybody wants to know what Travis Walton has to say about it.
Keith, before you answer that, Eric, we're going to save the rest for after the show, okay?
Okay, my bad. Okay.
No, it's not your bad. I think the line of questioning is fantastic. I just have a plethora of questions to get through with our audience. And like I said, I mean, after the show, I have no problem with
okay, no problem.
Call in after the show, and I'll keep everything live. So if everybody wants to hear more of the Dawn story, they can go over to periscope.com or periscope.tv /Spaced Out Radio and watch the answers there.
Beautiful. I'll just hang up and I'll listen to the rest of the show.
All right. Keith, if you want to finish up that...
Thanks a lot, Dave, for letting me call in. I appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, Eric. You know that. Anytime.
Well, thank you, Keith. I'll talk to you later.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah, we'll just continue that conversation afterwards, because the questions are lining up here, and I want to make sure that we get in everyone's questions. So no offense, Eric. It was a great phone call. Call back a couple minutes before the end of the show, or about a minute or two after, and then we'll make sure to connect back on with you, and you can ask Keith whatever you want. So we'll probably end up just doing that on Periscope, because, I don't know, maybe we'll keep Spreaker open at that time. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll play it by ear. All right. As we continue on here, right before I let Eric go, he was asking about Travis Walton's reaction as to why he wouldn't say anything about the Blue Man Dawn.
Yeah, and the best I can tell you is Travis is a very private person. And bearing in mind that, he chose not to say anything, I just left it at that point. And there is more to the story, but frankly, that's between Travis and I, unless Travis decides to talk, at which point I got no problem.
All right.
This is...
All right, let's move on here. We'll get more into that story after the show. Michael is asking in the SOR Space Travelers and the Veterans crew, are some aliens that visit us in the now from the future, or could they be us from the future?
No. And here's why. There's a lot of people that tell me that, that somebody came from the future and they're here now. Except reverse time travel isn't possible. You can go forward in time, but reverse time travel, in other words, them coming back here, is not physically possible. Because what that would do is it would actually tear reality apart. Okay, if it were even if it, try English. If that were feasible, by going back in time and modifying time, which is what that really would be, you would turn the space-time continuum upside down. Now, can people can they look into the past and see what's going on? Yes. Just basically like looking at a book, because the past is written, it's concrete, you can't do anything with it. But from everything I've come to understand, nobody travels back in time. Okay. And the people that travel forward in time can't go back to where they traveled forward from. It's very much a one-way trip.
What about parallel timelines, though?
That do exist. That do exist. So much for English. Those do exist, but they don't have the impact on this world. Okay, so you can look at or talk to whoever you choose, but the reality is they can't affect, somebody from the future cannot affect the past.
All right, let's move on to Elizabeth's question here. She is asking, do you believe there are phase-shifted gravity waves which could be much smaller in amplitude than regular gravity waves that we just detected this past year?
Absolutely. They run on the subquantum levels. And they are one of the reasons why the off-worlders' ships are so much more maneuverable. But yeah, they absolutely. There are also small pocket wormholes that are in that both ends are in planet, which makes traveling from one side of the planet a real quick trip.
This one was asked a while ago by RZ. He is asking, does the Van Allen belt radiation have anything to do with ET contact or them taking humans out into space?
Does it have any
effect?
Only from a minor standpoint, minor to the off-worlders. It's that belt. They have to take into consideration the modifications. You know, the shift, the difference in the energy patterns. But in and of itself, it's not actually. It's no more of a complication than a severe shear wind is for somebody trying to fly a plane. You know, it's just one of those things that, yeah, it just goes with the territory, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. All right, Dennis has a question here as we continue our catch-up. And I know you're not a big TV guy, but he's wondering if you watch The X-Files.
I used to, but I haven't watched the new series. I just haven't had time.
All right. He says it seems like we cannot trust what we see. That's kind of the gimmick that they go on through that show. Is this example correct?
Quite frankly, you could take it as correct, but no. The human optic nerve is quite reliable. A lot of the reason for that kind of a concept is it works really well for ratings. But people do, especially in today's world, people do ignore certain things. And they assume that everything, they seem to assume that virtually everything they see is a mock-up or is a fake. And what's happened is humans on the whole, at this point in time, have forgotten how to trust their own instincts where it comes to what they're looking at. But, you can certainly, most people, if they get out of their own way, can certainly trust what they're seeing. They just have to be willing to look at it. That's where it can get to be a little bit complicated.
All right, Graviton on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio is asking, there are a lot of people who say that they see dinosaurs, much like pterodactyls flying in the sky. Do you think these exist, or do you think it's some other reality that they are seeing?
Well, it's actually a combination. Some people are actually catching a window into the past and just seeing something pass by. But there are certain dinosaurs that, quite frankly, are still alive and well. There's not that many, obviously, or we'd have them walking around in downtown. But there are some of the great dinosaurs that still actually do walk the planet. But quite often it's a crossover where you're just getting a glimpse through the barrier. And the people that are getting that glimpse, more often than not, are more spiritually awake than the general populace, as it were. This is why kids get to see so much more than adults tend to.
Let's get back to Elizabeth's question. She says, have you heard anything about a large ship that is or was buried in northeastern New Mexico?
Yeah. It went there's been a couple, and it wasn't so much buried. Well, I guess technically it was. It crashed. But there was also one down in that area, and I don't know this part. I suspect that there are some pretty severe crystal deposits in that area, which would make total sense from my standpoint as to the reasoning behind it. But there were like the Roswell crash was not the only one. It just happened to be the one that got the most notification, and it was the most glaring, if you will.
All right, let's continue on here in regards to questions. I also want to remind you that we do have the phone lines opened up tonight at 1-702-302-4556. That's 1-702-302-4556. And what you got to do is you just have to dial on up. We want to hear about your alien stories. We want to hear about your experiences. Do you think you've been taken? Do you think that you might be an experiencer, but you don't really know? This is a place to call. 1-702-302-4556. Now, Keith, when we get to experiences, a lot of people do not know or understand if something truly happened to them. What are the early signs that they can look for if they feel something just isn't right or something happened?
Well, I mean, there's some pretty blatantly obvious ones from my standpoint. One of the things, like missing time, is a hard one to piece together because you're going to question it. The more obvious, blatant ones are when you go to bed in one set of clothes and wake up with your clothes on backwards. Okay, and that does happen periodically. There's a sense of, it's almost like when you wake up, there's a sense of something's not right. And more often than not, the people that have that feeling also have a panic attack that goes outside of their normal feelings. Like when you wake up with a start, usually it's a bit of a problem, right? But there is a definitive panic that goes hand in hand with it when there's something else missing. Okay. The other thing that is a pretty good giveaway is if when you wake up, you feel like you're absolutely stiff, like you haven't moved a muscle. And bear in mind, any one of these does not automatically mean, oh, you've been taken. Okay, because the last thing we want, Dave, is for people to come away from the show going, oh, I had this one thing, and that means I was taken. Because missing time on its own, quite frankly, people forget what they're doing. I know I do. But that's a couple of the things that stand out. Okay, and of course, waking up with cuts and bumps and, missing parts, as in little indentations in your skin and what have you. I do strongly recommend that when people wake up, that they write down what they're remembering, and if it's photographable, take a photo of it. Right? Because at the time it may not make a lot of sense, but looking back on it, it's one of those things that you really want to have a record of. Because let's face it, the memory will fade in a pretty big hurry.
So, are there physical traits that maybe they should look at? does it hurt going to the bathroom, or, blood stains on pillowcases or bed sheets when, you haven't hurt yourself throughout the night?
Oh yeah, like when you've got blood drops on your pillow, the first question, of course, is you always eliminate the logical, the obvious, the quantifiable. For instance, somebody may end up with blood stains with blood droplets on their pillow, but when you look at it, the humidity in the house is so dry that getting a bleeding nose is actually quite normal. Same as with the sheets. You always eliminate the logical first. Something that is extremely stiff and very disoriented. Where they're having trouble trying to piece together where they actually are, even though they haven't gone any. Okay, well, at least not as far as they're aware. The other thing that I have noticed with many people is if you're really feeling disoriented, and quite frankly, you grab a banana, have a banana, and you're feeling fine, that's what's called a potassium crash. And a potassium crash is usually indicated by a very disoriented feeling. Quite often, coordination is off. The eyes won't focus properly, right? And what the banana does is resets the potassium. But the thing of note is that that's what astronauts suffer from when they come back after being in space for a prolonged period. And that one, people can absolutely go and check out. Do your own research is my usual rule of thumb.
So
Makes sense?
So people who have been taken, for the most part, is this a lifelong happenstance, or is this something, Keith, for the most people, that it maybe happened the first time they realize it?
For most people, it's a pretty short-term thing. It really isn't as frequent as most people brace for. As most people are gauging it, if you will. There are people, of course, that do have that experience. That do have the ongoing. But the majority of them is just a simple issue of, it being a short-term experience. And it's, they usually have to go back. If you go back into memory, you can probably track it down. The one thing I do encourage people to do, if they feel they've been being taken more often than what they think, check with the parents or the grandparents, and you're likely to find that they've had something odd happen as well. That's one of those things that does sort of come up.
We just had a minor interruption here at SOR headquarters. Bazooka Joe has come on over with beer.
With beer.
With
well,
beer.
That was nice of him.
Yes, I'm pretty happy about Bazooka Joe right now. And it's actually, in my entire adult life, I've never had a stubby bottle. It's kind of cool.
You've never had it? Oh, you don't know what you're missing.
Well, I remember my dad drinking the stubbies, but I've never had one myself. This is kind of cool.
They're kind of a neat feel to them.
Mm-hmm. So,
personally, I like to stay. I don't drink it very often, but personally, I like in the stubbies, the OV.
Mm-hmm.
That periodically, that's actually a good little beer.
Do you recommend, getting back to the abduction scenario here, do you feel that people should keep a notepad if they feel that they are being taken or abducted or having contact, is it good to try and keep attached to what's going on? You know, through a notepad or taking notes?
Absolutely. I strongly recommend that, even if it's just a question of you're having dreams that have nothing to do with aliens. I still recommend having a pad handy to write stuff down on. You know, it's extremely important from that standpoint.
Keith, we have a caller calling on in here, buddy, and it is from area code 360. Area code 360. Who are we speaking with tonight?
Oh, hi. My name is Yvonne Kaluuya.
Hi, Yvonne. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm in Washington.
I figured that by the area code.
Yeah. Okay.
What part of Washington are you in?
Excited. I'm in Rockport.
Oh, very nice. Keith and I are both way north of you in British Columbia.
Oh, my goodness. Are you having as much rain as we are?
I got snow happening. Oh, it's...
I don't know. It's too dark to tell.
It's raining here now. Anyways, Yvonne, you have a question for Keith tonight.
Yeah. I had this experience just before 2006, like maybe 2004. But I was speaking with a psychic, on the telephone, and then suddenly both of us were like transported, and we were standing before two kind of beings, so to speak. And we were communicating, but it was like telepathically. And I know what they look like, but what they asked was they wanted a healer on the other side, and I remember, like, when we got back, so to speak, I asked the medium, did you do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do this, hopping over somewhere? And she said, no, it wasn't her. It was me that did it.
Okay. Yeah. She basically said it was your energy that pushed them over it.
Yeah.
Right.
See, because my gifts were really opening up, and so I just kind of, things happen. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I absolutely know what you mean.
So I didn't have like control, so to speak. Just spontaneously, I find myself out someplace in the universe. You know what I mean? And at that time, I didn't know what grays looked like.
Right.
You know what? But one of them was a gray, but the coloring, they were kind of like translucent, white, like both of them. And then the other one was like, well, really tall. I'm only 5 feet. And so, anything above that, 6 feet or taller looks really big to me. But it was not human. You know what I mean? It could have, he was like about 10 feet tall.
Right.
And it almost looked like, the only way I could describe looking at him is, if you ever seen Dark Crystal?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, he looked like that, when they were transformed, and became the good guys. But that's what I was looking at,
Well, I got one little question for you. When we're trying to gauge the height of the taller one, do you remember how tall you were, like where on his body you came up to? Roughly speaking.
I think a little bit less than, I was like less than half the size of his body. And so I'm 5'2".
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I was just trying to get a gauge, because there's a few races that would fit that height. Now, the whitish colored one that looked like a gray, in all probability, was a gray.
Okay.
Okay. Because grays do come in, I've seen them in as much as 15 different colors.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they're very much like humans in that respect.
Okay. Are they okay people? I mean, are they okay? You know what I mean?
Yes, and quite honestly, on the whole, the answer is yes. And
Okay.
they don't tend to affiliate with, like, the people they usually affiliate with are Nordics. But Nordics on the whole aren't 10 feet tall. They sit closer to about the 7.5.
Yeah, this was definitely taller than 7 feet. I mean, 7 or 8 feet.
Yeah, so I'm not entirely certain who the other one was, but I do know that you didn't come out of that run-in feeling, panicky and what have you, so we can safely say that the people you were dealing with, Greys are scientists. That's just what they are. Okay. And on the whole, what they do is they literally pick people up, when I talk about doing experiment, I mean they take blood samples, they take skin samples, that sort of thing, and do their best to put the people back.
Okay. Yeah, well, I didn't feel like we were tested or anything. And then plus there was another person with me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so that's why I felt, well, this isn't my imagination. I mean, because she experienced it too.
There's no question in my heart, the two of you were taken.
Oh, just like that?
Yeah, just like that.
Okay. But we came back okay, and their question to me, kind of lingered with me in terms of, well, they wanted a healer to come on the other side.
Well, normally when you're talking about the other side, or when any race is talking about the other side, they're talking about for the people that have passed away.
I see.
And do understand...
Their people or my people?
In all likelihood, it's probably a combination, but they undoubtedly were looking for a personal... They were likely looking for somebody for them personally, for a loved one of theirs. Because understand, the Greys and all the other races, for that matter, have their own religious beliefs. They've got their own spiritual side, and they do have this issue around, passing away and still having access to these people.
But but I felt like they were asking me to be the one to go over.
Well, yes, because you are a natural born healer, and they knew it. The fact that your skills are not evolved at that point, was almost an irrelevancy.
Yeah, because when I was a child, before I fell asleep, I definitely could see something was in my closet peeking out at me.
Yeah.
And once I saw the pictures of the Greys, I realized there was a Grey in my closet. I mean, it didn't happen every time I fell asleep, but when a young child, I had those beings watching me.
Oh, yeah. And that would be disconcerting, to say the least.
Yeah. No, I'm not a person who's easily frightened. I don't get scared. I'm more curious.
Yeah. No, but there's no question from my standpoint that you undoubtedly were picked up.
Oh, okay. But I came back okay. I mean, I don't feel...
Oh, yeah.
And the thing I did find out, like, a couple of years later, that I have a shamanic heritage in my family.
Well, that would explain the Grey's interest in you and being a healer.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, that would explain that right there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because, it was my paternal grandfather, but he passed away when I was like 3 or 4. You know what I mean? And so I think he would have been the one, to train me, so to speak. But I have had, and when I went to Mount Shasta one time, I was walking around, it was just a stopover as we were headed, for family. And I was feeling like very much watched.
And that would make total sense, especially on Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta has a phenomenal amount of energy to it.
Oh, okay. But I almost wanted to stay. You know what I mean? I was telling my partner, well, you guys go on ahead and I'll figure out some way to get, to get to your uncle's place. But I just felt really the need to that. I had to stay. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And to me, that makes absolutely total sense.
Oh, okay.
Well,
do I have some kind of connection with them? Other than being because of I'm a healer or something, or
it really boils down to the fact that your energy runs so high that you can pick up on the energy at Mount Shasta, and it makes you feel essentially as though you've come home.
Well, yeah. And then I had this other experience when I was going to a workshop in Eugene. And I was driving in my, automobile, and I wasn't on the freeway, but suddenly my whole surrounding, I was like in a white light.
Right.
Okay. And so I stopped and, kind of wait, catching up with myself. And then after, I went back and then continued back on the road. And then in less than 10 minutes, it happened again.
Right.
And so finally, I got off the road again, and I fell asleep for a good solid hour.
And that, in and of itself, tells you that, again, in all likelihood, you were taken.
Really? Okay. Because I wasn't sure whether, if it was like something was trying to prevent me from going to the workshop, or I was being prepared for what waited for me in the workshop, because I had to end up confronting the teacher, the Kumu, who was there, which is equivalent to a guru in your, language. And he was a master in Qigong, and he was a sex predator.
Oh, nice.
All right. We don't really get into the whole sex predator thing here on the show. I draw the line.
I'm not. No, but I'm just talking about that experience of the white. It was like I was sitting in a white cloud. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that white light is quite often associated with that kind of a pickup, if you will, because of the resonance with it.
Yeah, I see. Okay, well, it hasn't happened, you know what I mean? But I was just trying to understand, this white, everything was white, you know what I mean? And I just was, I just couldn't understand what happened, you know what I mean? But I feel fine.
I understand that entirely.
Yeah, I don't feel like, I have an implant or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not getting a problem around it at all, but that's basically what you went through.
Okay, so were they like checking me out or something, or?
Well, undoubtedly. Grays, that's what they do, is they pick people up, take blood samples, take skin samples, that sort of thing, and then put you back.
Oh, okay.
Now, they also will look at, like in this case, when they took two of you together, to look at the social interaction of people. Because, again, it's just a case of studying.
I see. Okay. Well, sorry, I'm sorry for taking all your time.
Oh, no. I just appreciate you calling on in. Where do you listen to us off of?
I just started listening to you just a few weeks ago.
Wonderful. And how did you find our show?
Oh, well, I just became a member of Eric's group, the Forest Moon.
Oh, yes, Eric
Paranormal.
Cooper.
And so, and I was just trying to figure out a way how to use my gifts as service to the community.
Well, you picked a really good team with Eric Cooper and Forest Moon Paranormal. Keith and I will also be speaking this year at the Forest Moon Paranormal Paracon, September 23rd.
Right, I plan on being there.
Yes.
Maybe I could meet you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we would love to meet you.
Yeah. For me, it's just I'm trying to kind of see, like, well, where do I fit in here? You know what I mean?
All too well.
Well,
yeah.
Yvonne, thank
Because
you
I
so
had
much though for
Yeah.
for becoming a listener of our show. We really do appreciate that.
Okay, well, thank you very much for allowing
Not
me
a
to
problem.
share these experiences.
Anytime. Feel free to call in anytime we have open lines. We'd love hearing about the experiences. You take care.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Keith, we got about a minute and a half before we got to go to break. I tell you, I love listening to how people came in touch with our show. I really do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think it's just absolutely fantastic. And she had some very good questions. I mean, you know, Yvonne calling in, she's only been a listener for a few weeks. She's found us through Eric Cooper's Forest Moon Paranormal. I think it's absolutely fantastic, you know, that she found our show and she's already asking questions. I love meeting the audience, and I love knowing how new people came across our show. Makes me feel good.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on both counts.
Mm-hmm. And you and I will be speaking this year at the Forest Moon Paracon on September 22nd down in Sadro-Woolley, Washington State. It's going to be a great time. Really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been too long already. Yeah, I'd like to be back now, but
and then the following week, after Eric Cooper's Forest Moon Paracon, everybody's got to get on in their vehicles, drive up on north to 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia, where we will be hosting the first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. That goes September 28th through the 30th at the beautiful Spruce Hill Spa and Resort. We really appreciate hooking up with them. This is going to be a great event. A lot of names coming on in. Grant Cameron will be our featured speaker. We have David Weatherly, Ross Allison, Lorian Fenton, Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, and so much more happening that weekend at the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon. We're going to step out for our final break of the night as we have our Keith Andrews and the ET Connection hanging out with us. Your calls, your questions, and more coming up right after this on the mighty SOR.
Hello, SOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here. Let me ask you, now that disclosure's happened, what does it mean for ufology? For answers, join us at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th. Keynote speakers Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address the current disclosure agenda. Dave Scott, yes, you're Dave Scott, and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien encounters. Get your tickets at caufocon.com. That's caufocon.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night and Sunday, while I am out in the forest finding my Zen and my Chi, I leave the cabin open here at SOR headquarters for Joe Roop and Elizabeth Anglin. Spaced Out Saturdays with Joe Roop goes at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Same as on Sundays with Elizabeth Anglin's Cosmic Passport. Spaced Out Sundays. Everything can be found at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Symbocephalic. Symbocephalic is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, we are live on periscope.tv. We are also live on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Make sure you go to hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show, at Spaced Out Radio if you want to follow us. We're on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. We are on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. Shop at the Spaced Out Radio store. You can also read up on the encounter online and, as well, watch great videos from UFO seekers at Contact TV. So much more at spacedoutradio.com. For the final time tonight, we introduce R. Keith Andrews. He comes in the final Friday of, or make that the first Friday of every month with the ET Connection. It's a way for you to find out your questions that you have about ET contact, everything to do with extraterrestrials. Keith is a lifelong experiencer, and he is one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to this topic. Keith, welcome back.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and welcome back to all the audience that's either just joining us or hanging with us already.
Absolutely, and we do want to remind people that after tonight's show, you could go over to periscope.tv/Spaced Out Radio. That's periscope.tv/Spaced Out Radio, where you are going to talk more about your experiences with Eric the Awakening Man. Eric with a K, as we like to call him around here. And, you know, it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll continue that for a little bit. And so once again, that's on periscope.tv/Spaced Out Radio. And if you want to call in this final hour, 1-702-302-4556. That's 1-702-302-4556. 4556. We're going to get more to the questions from the audience here. Bill is asking in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Keith, do you think there are a percentage of humans that are untouchable for abduction or experiments by an alien race, either because of their genetics or maybe some other reason?
Well, technically the answer would be yes, there probably are. Do I know of any? The answer would be no. Okay. Now, some of the races may not be able to get a read on certain people, and and of course, temperament may be another deciding factor. You know, they don't tend to take people that are violent while they're asleep. Usually it's a bad idea. But there undoubtedly are some, but I certainly wouldn't be betting on it being a very high number.
What would constitute someone not being taken in your mind?
Well, if somebody, for instance, when they knock them out, there are some people that literally go into an absolute panic while they're unconscious. And you just don't take people like that. There's too many added problems that go with it. Right? They don't tend to take people that they can't keep under, because it causes too much disruption for the person they take. Because half the idea of the abductions is to leave the person's life in as much of normal as it can get.
I understand that, but what about people with handicaps? Let's say if they have cerebral palsy or maybe paralysis from an accident, maybe chest down or waist down, so quadriplegic or paraplegic, or maybe mental disabilities like autism or Down syndrome. Do they get taken?
Absolutely. And for exactly the reasons that one would surmise, because of the differences. They want a reading on just exactly how that affects people. Much like when somebody's got epilepsy, they do, humans do EEGs and that sort of thing to see how the person's brain works. And then they compare it to people that don't have it. Off-worlders are no different in that respect. That's just an issue of they just simply do what they have to in order to sort of get an idea of what's going on. But yeah, especially when you're starting to talk about
that surprises me that people who are handicapped, whether it's physically or mentally, would be taken.
Well, think of it this way. When you're, like, for instance, cerebral palsy, right, on the whole doesn't affect the mind, but it does affect the neurological impact of gross motor function. And if you're a true scientist, you're going to want to know all the ins and outs. How does that damage, or how does that impediment affect the way the person thinks, perceives life, functions in a world where the world is geared for somebody that doesn't have it? You understand?
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next question. This one comes from Shar. She says, do all or any species of aliens answer to God, or what humans would perceive as God?
Virtually every race has their definition. And I mean, since we're using the term God, we can safely go into the Christian side of it. And it tells you right in the Bible that God is known by many names on many worlds. So virtually every race has some form of either singular or plural God that they worship. And quite frankly, for much the same reason that mankind does.
Right.
Ironically, the whole purpose of that is to explain the inexplicable until science can catch up to it.
Adam is wondering on Periscope, do cryptids get abducted?
Yes. Now, granted, you take something like Ogopogo, they don't abduct them very often. We tend to, the abductions tend to take place on the smaller cryptids.
Like gnomes.
Like gnomes. And you're going in, why don't they just keep them?
Yes. Yeah, why not just take all the garden variety of gnomes that you could possibly get up? And Bazooka Joe is laughing here behind me. He's still happy that I haven't found the gnome in my house that he placed over Christmas. My house is being terrorized. That's what's happening here. All right, let's get to Elizabeth's question. She's saying, Keith, can you please remind me of what this place is? And if it sounds familiar. Desert planet with ocean, tall white beings living in Santorini-type dwellings, telepathic and musical. Do they sound familiar?
tall white ones? Well, it's definitely not the... I mean, I'm presuming that she's referring to pure white, or just about, not like the Nords. And do they sound familiar? Yeah, very definitely. They are... quite frankly, they strike... If I'm right now, unfortunately, I don't know the height that she's referring to, and that could be a deciding factor. But by the feel of it, she is likely looking at the trying to draw the name out, but it's the same ones that the Greeks used to follow. But it depends. It sounds like that world, but the problem is, which of course would put it on Olympus, but the problem is I don't know the height of the race she's talking about. Because tall is, well, let's face it, a little ambiguous. No offense intended. But she's probably referring to either Elysium or possibly in Olympus itself.
Very weird. I don't know. I've never seen a tall white alien.
Well, that's why I say it depends on the height that we're looking at.
Interesting. Interesting. How many people have the same experience, Keith?
Oh, heavens. I can't even begin to give you that number. Because, quite frankly, the numbers are staggering as far as the similarities between experiences go. I mean, I realize for you, when Carl stuck his head in essentially at your window, very disconcerting, but not even remotely unheard of. I used to joke about it when I was a kid, figuring they were just a bunch of little peeping Toms, but, they never went looking for the bedroom window.
So getting back to family, though, getting back to family for a minute here, because a lot of people believe, Keith, and I know I've asked you this before, a lot of people believe that if a child is taken, the parents must be taken, or the grandparents, and there's some sort of lineage that goes along with people who are being taken by extraterrestrials. How often, maybe it's more than not, I don't know, is it where, well, let's take Bazooka Joe and his family. They have a daughter. None of them believe they've ever been taken or had any experiences. In fact, he hasn't had any until I showed him the Bigfoot footprint out in the forest. But
that threw him for a loop.
Yeah, it did. What the hell is that? What the hell is this? 15 minutes of what the hell is this, Dave? What the hell is this? No, but seriously though, they haven't had any experiences that they know of. Okay, and most people eventually will realize that something strange is going on. Now, how often does it happen, Keith, where a family like that, who doesn't have any type of experiences, where all of a sudden, maybe the more they're delving into this situation, does that lead to experiences, or are they call them a safe family, where by this point in life they probably aren't going to be taken?
Yeah, at this point, if they haven't been taken before, the odds are they're not going to be. It doesn't mean they're immune to it, but not everybody gets taken. Most of the time, if you don't know about it, more often than not, it hasn't happened. The ones that get difficult to deal with are the ones that haven't legitimately had anything happen, and yet want it so badly they talk as though it did. And that can confuse all sorts of things. But no, in his case, I'd be inclined to say that it likely isn't going to happen at this stage.
Well, interesting question by Joe here. He says, who are the aliens that tap on the window before you're taken?
That's usually the Greys.
I could have answered that one.
More often than not, they're the ones that give you a bit of a, start before they take you. I'm still trying to figure out why, but I think they get a kick out of the reaction people get. But that's who usually does the tapping.
And why do they do the tapping? Just out of curiosity.
Well, in all fairness, it's actually a way of knocking the person out, because they use actually a definitive pattern to try and make the person, it's kind of, if you will, a sonic prep. Right. An auditory prep. And by tapping on the window in the way they do it, the idea is to get the person already starting down that road. But that'll be the why.
Well, this now leads to Tripp's question, which is, how is it that one house can have experiences, but the neighbors have nothing happen to them?
Well, unfortunately, beginning to give you that answer is going to be a little fun. It's kind of like, how can a tornado pick one house up and decimate it and leave the neighbor within arm's reach alone? The how, all I can tell you is they're not going after the neighbor.
So how do they pick and choose? In your contact with extraterrestrials that you have they ever told you how they pick and choose the people that they're going to be taking?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of variation, but blood type definitely has an impact depending on the race and what they're looking for. Okay, like if they're just doing analytics, then they'll go after a specific bloodline. They usually are going after like a specific blood type, rather. They usually are going after some sort of a connection between all of the people, and that doesn't, that means they're looking for a comparison line to see how the different blood types fare. They also look at the cranial fluid and see what kind of level they're looking at. And you can tell that by an advanced sonar, without causing damage. And they'll check how much liquid there is there to determine what kind of impact that has on modern society. But those are, and of course, bloodline definitely comes into play, where if they've grabbed the grandfather, the odds are they're going to get the father too.
Okay, well, does it then extend to, like we talked earlier about cryptids being taken, we've talked about people being taken, do everyday animals get taken, like household pets, or maybe wild rabbits or deer or bears, or name the animal that's roaming in the forest? Do they get taken as well?
Yes. They just don't report it to MUFON and that sort of thing. Plants are also regularly picked up. Because you got to remember, this is what's literally classified as a science issue. Okay. So if you're doing the tracking, you do it completely. You don't just track one part of it. You follow?
Yeah, I totally understand plants. I really do, because, I mean, if you're going to look at what the fauna and the flora is on an alien planet, no pun intended, obviously you are going to take samples of what is there. But if they're taking animals, let's say a rabbit or a raccoon, do they bring it back? Or do they keep it for their own experimentation or zoo?
No, more often than not, they put it back. And usually as close to where they got it as they can get away with.
Does the animal know, though?
Technically, the answer is yes. But again, it's very much, essentially you've got the same problem with animals that people do. They take the animal, knock it out. Sometimes they know about it. Other times they don't. That's just their way of dealing with it. But again, it's the awareness of the animal, and that varies in individual to individual. That's where that comes.
Can the animal control it? Like we have people who are trying to use consciousness to control their abductions. Can an animal do that as well, since they're more pure to the environment?
Only once in a very blue moon. On the whole, it's a question of the animal doesn't have the cognitive capacity to fight it. Whether or not they got the power is irrelevant. They don't have the capacity. Like I said, the cognitive capacity. They don't have the brain power to be able to sort through it.
Gail wants to know why E.T. doesn't just go to our doctor's offices to search our records if they want to know all about us, rather than just taking us.
Well, have you ever noticed that the records that the doctors take, number one, aren't complete? Number two, the technology that mankind uses for taking records, for taking samples, is not as well developed and well defined as what the off-worlders are. So they prefer to do it going to the source, i.e. the individual. But that would be why.
One 702-302-4556 if you want to call in tonight to get your ET questions answered by Mr. R. Keith Andrews tonight. 1-702-302-4556. Now, Keith, can someone be abducted by multiple different races? And if so, what would different races want with the same person?
Well, number one, can it happen? The answer is yes. It doesn't very often. And usually it's a corroboration issue where one race has the best technology to do the blood screening. The other race is much more developed on double checking the physical skeletal system. Right. So to get the full picture, they decide to join forces and work on turning things around. But and as far as what they're looking for, that's as varied as the day is long.
I understand that, and I can appreciate that. But with that being said, do they, as in the extraterrestrials, share their studies?
Depends on the extraterrestrial. The Greys, on the whole, do. Okay, I mean, there is a small faction of Greys that won't, but on the whole, they do. Okay, and, there are some that the rest of them, you got to understand, where it comes to the scientists of evolved races, if they're evolved, they don't have that jealousy factor, which is what usually causes the problem in the first place. That's how that comes into play.
Okay, so with that being said then, do the Greys then sell, because they are the scientists of the alien race, do they sell or barter people's information to other races?
Well, you remember that thing I mentioned about there is a small faction that doesn't exactly play by the rules? That'll be them. And, they will sell to the highest bidder is what it boils down to.
Okay.
But yeah, that's why they do it that way.
Right. Very much makes sense. Shar has a question for you, and she is asking, She doesn't think disclosure is going to happen because it would screw up extraterrestrial abductions. Do you think this could be plausible?
Plausible, technically. Does it hold any water from my experience? Not in the slightest. Okay, because whether you know there's an alien there or not, you don't have, on the whole, the wherewithal to stop it. Fortunately, they're not here to conquer anybody. But no, it is, it's technically plausible. It's just I find it doesn't hold a lot of water.
We only got about 15 minutes to get your calls in before we're going to go to the thought of the day. 1-702-302-4556 is the phone number to call in. 1-702-302-4556. Let's go to another question from Shar. Do they do this on other planets and with other races as well in regards to abductions?
Absolutely. The Greys, half the reason they were able to actually perfect the hybridization program was by going to other races, by other species. You know, go to other planets and deal with other races. You know, but they had to have a very wide array. So yeah, they definitely do.
Would they be taking them for the exact same reasons as they're taking humans?
Well, varied reasons, but yes. Because essentially you're talking about them looking into another planet or possibly another solar system altogether, and they need the information. Okay. So, I mean, you know, abductions do happen. The trick is to make them as least invasive as you can get away with in order to make it work. You follow?
I totally follow, my friend. Totally follow. You know, it's just strange to think that they're taking other beings from other planets as well as doing this.
Well, you got to understand, they are trying to figure out exactly how society is evolving, what is being changed. And frankly, how much water you drink right before a meal can tell you a staggering amount about a lot of different things, not the least of which is your health. Okay, so I mean, that's where that all comes together.
Hat-trick question for Shar. She is asking, do you ever see them going to quit?
Not from my understanding. And bear in mind, I've watched 3 Big Bangs go, and the aliens have always been going in and picking people up. The only time it seems to stop them cold is when they've had everything they need for that particular examination, as it were. You know, sometimes they'll say, well, we want 60 people to, you know, we want to test 60 people, and that's where it ends. Sometimes it's longer than that. But are they likely to quit? No. And I certainly wouldn't be holding my breath waiting for it.
We always hear about implants and marks that are left. Usually people get 3 little dots in a triangle or something along those lines. Are there specific areas that those are normally seen on? Like, is it on an arm, on the back, on the side of the nose, on the foot, wherever?
Normally, the most common places are the side of the nose in one of the nasal cavities, the side of the house, doorknob, side of the nose, the cerebral cortex, which is right at the, that's right at the base of the skull. Okay. Some people get them in the lower back. You know, but those are the most common places to get them. And of course, there are others. I mean, I've seen it done where they're put in the shoulder. But because these are just places that are very easy to work with. That's where the difference comes in. Okay. I trust that makes sense.
Sorry, you broke up there.
Oh, I said I trust that makes sense. But apparently not.
Not at that point, but that's okay. That's okay. So when people are being abducted then, if you're abducted at night, do you have a better opportunity of being abducted in the daytime or at any time in the 24-hour wheel? Or if they choose to take you at night, they're going to keep you at night. You're not going to be, sitting at the park in the middle of the afternoon and all of a sudden, zip, you're gone for a couple of hours.
And no, they don't pin it down that way. What they do is they look when it's best for your schedule. Okay. Like, they won't, where the difference comes is they won't, if you're, if you're somebody that loves wearing a dress, right, and you only tend to wear it on a certain day, then to make them a little bit more comfortable, they'll wait for that certain day to take the person. Right, whether it's day, night, doesn't matter. They will wait until the person has that outfit on. But they do not, if you're taking it at night, it does not mean that forever, for the rest of your life, that it's going to happen then. Okay. It's another way of making things a little bit more palatable for the rest of the party. Make sense?
Makes total sense. Let's get to Tripp's question. He is asking, with so many of us wanting to be chosen, and those that never had a choice in being abducted, why make us forget instead of giving happy, fun memories of the experience?
Well, because if mankind all of a sudden, like if we go back and, drop it in mankind's lap that, they really are aliens here and they're a bunch of fun-loving individuals, it will have a very definitive impact on the way that society evolves. Okay, that's one of the reasons why they try and keep things quiet. Okay, and it's just a matter of protocol in their eyes.
But Tripp brings up a very good point. There are a lot of people, Keith, who are dying for the experience. And I mean that facetiously, of course.
Yeah.
But they want to be taken. They don't care if it's good, it's bad. If they're raped like Whitley Strieber was, or if they have a supernatural experience where they're downloaded with all sorts of information. They don't care. Yet, it never seems to happen to them.
Yep, and that is precisely why. Because if you've got somebody that has no ambition or no focus, you're not going to be able to get a functional reading on the cranial capacity. Okay, ultimately it boils down to if you can't figure out, if it doesn't matter to you whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing, they're not going to be looking at you from the standpoint of, she's got she or he has a good head on his shoulders. Let's see how it's interacting. They don't go that direction.
Why not?
Well, because when the person doesn't have drive, cannot tell how the race is going to evolve. Because if all they were doing was taking the ones without drive, frankly, you'd end up with a society of people that didn't do anything and didn't accomplish anything. Okay, and that is not what they're trying to figure out.
So what is it that they are trying to figure out then?
well, quite literally, they're trying to understand twofold. One, how mankind has managed to evolve to the level it has without getting killed. Okay. And the second one is quite literally trying to understand how people interact on the materialistic side and on the emotional side. Because it's all part and parcel of the same thing. That's where that comes in.
I get that, and I can appreciate that. Tripp says, humans have been around for millions of years. What's taking them so long to find out what they need?
Oh, it's not. This is an ongoing study. They're studying the evolution of the human race. So that's something that is still going on.
All right, let's get to Joe's question. He is asking, if someone is taken many times as a small child, but not as an adult, does that mean the aliens can't control the adult, or they just are done studying that person? I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah, it's more often that they're finished with that particular individual for whatever they were taking them for. More often than not, it's a question of it's just done with. They no longer require the attachment. It's got.
Does that happen often? Does that happen often, though?
Quite frankly, yeah. I mean, it boils down to this: if the person in question is going to an off-worlder to get things organized, it's a very definite possibility that that you're dealing with a situation with the, how do I put this? If the child is becoming more unruly or becoming too questioning on the practical side of it, the individual will likely pick out just a more complacent individual. You don't want to take an aggressive person onto a ship that they can actually bust the window out of. This is usually a bad idea. But that's where that goes sideways.
We only got about 4 minutes before we're going to go to the thought of the day. Tina in the chat room has an interesting comment here. She says, my boyfriend asked me to go outside. I put on my shoes and jackets. I got nausea. Then, all of a sudden, he couldn't remember why he asked me to go outside with him. She thinks they're coming. What do you think?
No, they've already been. Yeah, no, that was subtle, wasn't it? The reality of it is that she probably is picking up on the energies anyway, but from my standpoint, it's a pretty black and white issue. And by the feel of it, it's been going on for a lot longer than just a few years. Okay. But the person that wakes up and has that feeling, most of the time it's a done deal. Where they got what they went in for, and it's not going to continue costing them.
You know what? I recall that almost identical same thing happening to me when I had the UFO landing back in 2013. And sitting at my friend's house, and I had told one of the people in the house to get their shoes on because they were supposed to come outside with me, but her husband and my wife were not allowed to come out.
Right.
Could it be one of those things for Tina where maybe she's not supposed to experience it, and therefore was kind of nauseous about it.
And that is a definitive possibility. The other possibility, and in all fairness is more likely, is that she was simply not used to that kind of energy. Net result, it created a bit of a, shall we say, a bit of a problem. Okay. Because, in a case like that, the nausea, there's no question that she picked up on the emotional. Okay, that's the easy part to spot.
They're making fun of my hair on Periscope. They're making fun of my hair, Keith.
Well, that's unfortunate.
I know.
Maybe it's jealousy.
These are women. They're never jealous. They could grow their hair like 3 feet in like 6 days.
You do realize that although hair is a woman's crowning glory, men can grow more of it?
I know. I get that. Except Bazooka Joe. We got the thought of the day coming up right now. Thought of the Dave happens every single day while I'm on the air. We ask a daily question on my Facebook page, and then we get you to respond. And I read your answers on the air. It's a great way for us to participate with the audience on a nightly basis. And Keith is sticking around for this, so we will get his opinion on this as well. So, today's Thought of the Dave, as Mr. Bumblefoot winds down. Have you ever been face-to-face with an extraterrestrial? Tell me about it. I always love these people when you say, tell me about your experience, and they type like 4 words. Or this person, daily, my children. That tells me a lot.
Did it? You're doing better than I am.
I know. Let's get to Sandra's comment right off the bat. She goes, yes. By chance, in our back alley, he was standing there looking at a house, and he had long blonde hair, so I thought it was someone I knew. I called to him, and he turned and started walking over, and then I realized it wasn't who I thought it was. He stood right in front of me, and I could not process what I was looking at. Huge black eyes, and there didn't seem to be a mouth or nose. I knew it couldn't have been a mask. This was in the 70s. So I tried to scream and ran, but I realized that my brothers were still out there and ran back, but too late. He disappeared. What the hell did she see, Keith?
Well, depending on the height, the fact it was blonde with no face, frankly, that sounds almost like we're dealing with an Untar.
A what?
An Untar.
What the hell is an Untar? We got German aliens now? Or Austrian aliens?
Well, I mean, we got all kinds anyway. Basically, they're a tracker. Okay, they're totally harmless unless you consider being pointed out being a problem. And the thing is, those guys, if they don't have a job, they'll just simply go around looking. But that, by the feel of it, because with no nose or mouth, black eyes, right, you're dealing with another race.
Could it not have been an adult version of a black-eyed kid?
It is distinctly possible. Okay, the only difference is with the black-eyed kid, much as they don't tend to talk about whether there's something over the mouth, they don't make a definitive point of it. You know, that might be the biggest problem right there.
Sounds good to me, my friend. Let's get to another one here, and this one comes from, let's see, Wendy. She says, one time when I was in my living room about 30 years ago, I was doing a lot of meditation and such, having an out-of-body experience at night. Having out-of-body experiences at night. Anyway, in my living room, you know the feeling you get when you're being stared at? I think Rupert Sheldrake did research on that. Anyway, I felt stared at, and I looked to the right of me, and there was a gray alien materializing right in front of me. We stared at each other. I was terrified. Maybe he was too, because he dematerialized. I collapsed on my couch and tried to tell myself it wasn't there and never happened. Oh my God, talk about PST or trauma. It really happened, and I've only ever told a handful of people.
Well, I'm very grateful that she has shared it with us. And basically, that's exactly what happened. Is it materialized in, was startled by the fact that she was there, and whipped back out again. Which means he undoubtedly had to come back and finish the sample getting later. But that is actually
is it because maybe he wasn't supposed to be seen and was caught off guard?
Bingo. They're supposed to show up unbeknownst, unannounced. And it just doesn't tend to work that way. But yeah, that would be why. And yeah, there's no question that the individual was scared.
No, I can understand the fear. I think everybody who has had that experience has that fear. They know that fear. As all of a sudden the ringing picks up in my ears, right as I say that. But, it makes me remember that night when Carl and his buddies were around and the clicking sounds that were happening in my backyard when I got a hold of you. Where his buddies were a little weirded out that I wasn't moving. I wasn't running away. I wasn't going inside. Is that kind of the same thing?
Yes. That is precisely what you're looking at. They didn't know how to cope with it. And they undoubtedly didn't know how to cope with her.
Does that happen often, though, in meditation?
More often than you might think, but in all fairness, most of the time in meditation, it's more an issue of them pretty much putting it in place where the memory comes in, but it's not necessarily an actual event. Okay. It's not something that actually takes place so much as something that they clearly are letting, they're letting you, if you will, evolve. But that's how that comes in.
So when that being dematerialized, was it out of fear for its own safety or fear that it was seen?
In all likelihood, fear that it was seen. Probably startled the daylights out of it. I don't feel it was afraid of anybody so much as was caught where it didn't belong. Make sense?
Was it maybe in the wrong house? Did it get the wrong address?
Well, that's just it. These are speculations, and I really can't give you a definitive, but it's definitely possible. I'd be inclined to say it would be one of the houses right next door. That is more likely the issue. Okay. So, you just work with that.
All right, we got one more here, my friend. We got one more in today's Thought of the Day. This one comes from Jody, who says, I have had this happen. A friend is regularly visited by an ET. I picked up on it when I did a reading for her. It visited me a few weeks later to confirm some information that I gave her and gave me a few more messages to give her, then left. It was interesting. Why would that happen?
Well, depending on the race, that could happen to get a message to the individual. Like, for instance, the fairy folk will often do that. If they find somebody that is amenable to fairies, they will tag them as potential benefit. Right. So, I mean, there's so many possibilities as to why they would pin the person down. It literally seems to be, from my standpoint, a question of basically keeping things running smoothly and making sure that they're staying out of sight, as it were. You know, that's where the big difference is. You follow?
I totally follow. Does that mean that maybe the messages that the ETs needed to get through to her went to her spiritual advisor?
Yes. And that would be how I read it.
Does that happen often, though?
Oh, yeah. The thing is, much as the ETs are definitely interested in the state of the planet, they're not as worried about it as they used to be. You know, they're still worried that mankind is destroying the planet, and that just doesn't make sense. But they're not as worried as they used to be where it came to, you know, where it comes to what's going to startle them, as it were. But whenever they take somebody, they definitively try and put it back where it came from. You follow?
I do, my friend. We only got about 90 seconds left with you tonight, as we say thank you so much once again, my friend, for coming on the ET Connection, which happens the first Friday of every single month. Keith, appreciate it. I love having you around here.
Well, it was a riot, and I'll tell you, it started off with some absolutely incredible questions. You know, I do think that went over rather well.
A lot of interesting questions tonight.
Very. Yeah, very definitely. And I'm sure we'll end up with more. And again, you know, I know people can contact you and get my information directly from you, or track me down on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. It's not a question of will I talk to you, it's a question of when. You know.
Very much so. Our Keith Andrews, thank you, my friend, for being on. And I want to remind everybody right now that we are going to be going off of Spreaker, and we're going to be going over to periscope.tv/spaced out radio, periscope.tv/spaced out radio, to continue this chat of Dawn the Alien. Eric the Awakening Man will be calling in any time here to check things out and continue that talk with Keith. So I highly suggest you go there. I want to also say a big thank you to everybody who called in tonight and your questions. You made it a lot of fun for Keith and I. And, of course, Bazooka Joe showing up with a couple of drinks. You never go wrong with a few Friday night beverages, I can tell you that. Thank you, Bazooka Joe, for stopping on by, and Mrs. Bazookette for allowing you to take the leash off of him to get him over here. Really appreciate that. Tomorrow night and Sunday, we got the weekend crew coming into SOR headquarters. Joe Roop with Spaced Out Saturdays tomorrow night. Then on Sunday, The beautiful and talented Elizabeth Anglin is back with Spaced Out Sundays, Cosmic Passport. Both shows get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Really appreciate the guitar god himself strumming away for us. Also, want to say thank you to all of you who are listening at home, at work, in your cars, and to everybody on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, on Periscope at periscope.tv/Spaced Out Radio. Those in the Spreaker chat room and the veterans in the SOR Space Travelers Club, thank you for another great week. I will be back on Monday night with Rich Giordano talking UFOs. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one. We're going to Periscope. Come join us. The water's warm, the drinks are fine, and the clothes are off. Good night.